I canceled my husband's mother's anniversary dinner after she erased my name. No warning. No seat at the table. They thought I'd stay quiet. I smiled, pulled out my phone, and shut it all down. The dinner. The plans. The celebration. That was the last night I ever played the role of their daughter-in-law. I still remember the moment. Everyone was dressed in black tie. The room sparkled with crystal glasses, gold chargers, and too much old money. And yet, somehow my name was missing. From the seating chart. From the program. From the family. I stood there, frozen. Like I'd been erased on purpose. And maybe that was the point. My husband's mother caught my eye. She smiled like nothing happened. But her eyes said everything. You don't belong here. And in that moment, something shifted. No more silence. No more playing nice. If they wanted a clean cut, I'd give them one. But it wouldn't be quiet. And it wouldn't be clean. I used to think I was chosen. That I'd somehow broken into a world that wasn't built for girls like me. I came from a family of quiet workers. My parents ran a small diner in Sacramento. Nothing fancy. I paid my own way through college with night shifts and scholarships. Built a boutique event planning company from the ground up. Word of mouth, long hours, and delivering the impossible again and again. That's how I met Ethan Caldwell. He was the oldest son of the Caldwell dynasty, a fifth-generation business empire spanning luxury real estate, political connections, and a PR machine that could spin anything. They were the kind of rich that never posted about it. Old money. Discreet power. Legacy. Ethan walked into one of my events in LA like he owned the room, because, in many ways, his family probably did. But unlike most of the Silver Spoon crowd, he asked about the lighting angles, the pacing of the speech, how I coordinated the VIP arrivals. He saw the work, not just the sparkle. He called the next morning to compliment my team. Then again, the day after, asking if I'd consider planning his mother's charity auction. That was the first time I met her. Isabel Caldwell. My future mother-in-law. She didn't shake my hand. She looked me up and down like I was the caterer's assistant. Then said, Ethan didn't tell me he'd hired someone. Modern. I laughed it off. Tried to charm her. Didn't work. Still, the event went flawlessly. And somehow, despite Isabel's thinly veiled disdain, Ethan kept calling. Dinners, walks through neighborhoods I never thought I'd belong in. 6 months later, we were officially a couple. A year after that, he proposed. It wasn't a fairy tale. There were signs. Isabel refusing to let me help plan the engagement dinner. Guests will expect something traditional, she said. Ethan stayed silent. She added a second photographer to our wedding, just in case Meadows' people missed something. Again, Ethan said nothing. And yet, I wanted to believe he loved me enough to protect me. That silence was his way of keeping the peace. That once I was officially family, things would change. They didn't. Every family event had its undercurrent. My seating was always off. I'd get edited out of photos. Introduced as Ethan's wife instead of Meadow. Isabel smiled through it all. So did I. But mine was the kind you rehearse in the mirror. The one you wear to survive. When the Caldwells asked me to plan their 80th anniversary gala, the crown jewel of the company's history, I thought it was a turning point. Finally, they were trusting me. Finally, I was more than just the plus one. I poured myself into every detail. Location, a luxury resort in Singapore. Guest list, 300 names across business, politics, and media. Custom lighting rigs. Hand-embossed invitations. A 3-day experience meant to scream prestige. Isabel pretended it was her vision. But I didn't care. I'd signed the contracts. Managed the budget. Brought it all to life. Still, the slights kept coming. My emails weren't answered. My name was absent from press releases. My seat was missing during the preview dinner. And Ethan? He kept saying things like, don't overthink it. You know how my mother is. I started to wonder if this wasn't about her. Maybe it was about them. Maybe they all agreed I didn't belong, just didn't say it out loud. The closer we got to the gala, the clearer it became. I wasn't just excluded. I was being erased. But I didn't cry, didn't beg, didn't ask why. I watched. I listened. And when I found what they were planning, I started making plans of my own. It started with small things. A vendor call I wasn't looped into. A timeline change I wasn't told about. An updated press release listing Isabel as the lead planner, my name nowhere in sight. I brushed it off at first. Told myself it was just miscommunication. That it would all settle down once we got to Singapore. It didn't. From the moment we arrived, the air felt off. Isabel acted like the entire event was her creation. She floated around the resort, greeting VIPs like royalty, nodding approvingly at my setups, never once acknowledging who built them. And Ethan? He was slipping too. He used to ask me for updates. Now he nodded along distractedly, scrolling his phone. One night, I stayed up adjusting the lighting cues for the awards segment. He walked in, glanced at my laptop, and said, "Don't stress so much. Mom's happy. That's what matters." Right. Because Isabel's happiness had always been the metric. Then came the seating changes. I designed the layout months in advance. Name cards, printed place settings, custom chairs for the head table. Everything perfect. 3 days before the event, I walked into the ballroom and found the layout completely redone. My assistant looked panicked. "Mrs. Caldwell said you approved it." "I'm so sorry, Meadow," I thought. My seat was moved. Again. Shifted to the far end. Away from Ethan, away from the family. I said nothing, but I started taking screenshots, saving email trails, printing backups. That night, I opened our shared hotel tablet to update the itinerary and saw a new note from Isabel's personal assistant. "Confirm removal of Meadow from press photos. Make sure she's not front row during keynote." I stared at the message, reread it twice, then closed the tablet, walked to the mirror, and stared at myself for a long time. I looked tired, not from work, from fighting to be visible. I thought about how I had designed every inch of this event. The lighting, the flow, the ambience, the signature scent pumping through the hallways. And yet, I wasn't even allowed to be seen in it. The next morning, I arrived early to a sponsor brunch and found Isabel in mid-conversation with the PR lead. She didn't see me standing there. Or maybe she did. But she didn't care. "I just didn't want her at the front," she was saying. "It's not that she's unpresentable. It's just the optics. You understand." The PR woman nodded, smiled politely. I walked away before anyone noticed. Or maybe they did. But like always, no one said a word. Later that afternoon, I received a meeting invite for a private pre-event strategy session. Location: Ethan's suite. Time: 9 p.m. No other details. When I asked him about it, he looked surprised. "Oh, that's just for some logistic stuff. You don't need to come." "But I got an invite," I said. "Huh, must be a mistake." I nodded, but something in me clicked. This wasn't carelessness. It wasn't miscommunication. This was a pattern, a system, and I was on the outside of it, which meant someone was working very hard to keep me there. The night before the gala, I couldn't sleep. My body was exhausted, but my mind wouldn't shut off. Too many missing pieces. Too many strange looks. Too much silence. Ethan was in the shower when his phone buzzed. He always kept it face down. But that night, he forgot. The screen lit up. A preview of the message glowed in the dark. "Let me know if she suspects anything. I'll stay out of sight till after the announcement." From someone saved as M. I didn't think. I picked up the phone, opened the thread. Messages going back months. Plans. Meetups. Talks of when it's finally official. And then one that made my stomach turn. "Can't wait to be by your side at the after party." She won't even know what hit her. The sender's name wasn't M. It was Madeline, Ethan's ex. The one Isabel had once said would have been a perfect fit for the family. I sat frozen. He was planning something. Not just with her. For her. Around me. And then, the final nail. A shared Dropbox folder. Titled, "Anniversary Assets. Final." Inside, a press release draft announcing Ethan and I had mutually and amicably decided to separate. Talking points for Isabel and Ethan. A schedule, my name nowhere on it. A copy of the new seating chart. 12 chairs. Not 13. I stared at the layout. The head table. My name gone. And that's when it hit me. I wasn't just being pushed aside. I was being replaced. Publicly. Carefully. Cleanly. They were staging my exit. And the gala? It wasn't just a celebration. It was a goodbye. Their goodbye. Not mine. Mine would come later. Louder. Sharper. And on my terms. I didn't scream. Didn't cry. Didn't throw the phone or confront him in the hallway like some soap opera wife. Instead, I breathed. Deep. Slow. And I started making a list. By sunrise, I had 3 priorities. 1. Secure the financials. 2. Protect my company. 3. Make sure no one ever forgot the moment they tried to erase me. First, I contacted my lawyer back in California. Told him to prepare a full copy of the company's event contracts, bank transactions, and all email threads related to the gala. Everything had been processed through my firm with my name on the billing. I wanted a clean, legal trail, one that showed I'd funded, booked, and managed this event from day one. Next, I called my lead event coordinator and told her to quietly begin the reversal process. Not a cancellation yet, but gather refund policies, vendor contact hours, and refund eligibility windows. We'd keep everything in place, but hold the strings loosely. Then I checked into a separate room at the resort. No one knew. I left my things in Ethan's suite to avoid suspicion. But every night, I slipped away to my own space, where I could think. And every day I smiled. At brunches. At walkthroughs. At the rehearsal dinner Isabel insisted on calling an intimate legacy celebration. I nodded politely. Complimented her on the floral choices I'd made. Let her pretend she ran the show. Meanwhile, I ran my own. I met with each vendor one-on-one. Updated contact info. Double-checked balances. Slipped gratuity envelopes ahead of time, double the usual. Just a thank you, I'd say. In case I don't get to see you after the event. Some gave me strange looks, but most smiled back. They didn't need to know. Not yet. On the morning of the gala, I woke before dawn. Put on my charcoal suit, the one I wore to contract signings and corporate courtrooms. No sequins. No silk. Just structure and steel. I walked the ballroom alone. Checked the podium. Noticed that the speaker list still didn't include me. Saw Isabel's name 3 times. Fitting. Back in my suite, I opened my laptop and queued the final wave of emails. One to each vendor. Each with a version of the same line. As per our agreement, please hold execution of all services unless I confirm within the next hour. Then I sent a message to the venue director. Please have someone from accounting available on standby tonight. There may be a payment method change. At exactly 3 p.m., I got a call from Ethan. Where are you? In the ballroom. You're not answering the group chat. I figured you had it under control. He hesitated. Are you okay? I smiled. Never better. By 5 p.m., the final floral delivery arrived. White orchids. Gold-tipped roses. I signed for them. Then texted my team. Stand by. No one cancels until I say so. At 6:45 p.m., I walked back into Ethan's suite as if nothing had happened. The dress I chose was dark navy. Structured. Clean. Hair pulled back tight. No jewelry but a pair of diamond studs I bought myself 2 years ago after landing my first $1 million client without a referral. He looked up from his tie. You look amazing. Thanks, I said. You okay? I smiled. Absolutely. Inside, I wasn't okay. I was focused. Clear. Cold. They had spent weeks rehearsing my humiliation. What they didn't know was that I had spent the last 72 hours rehearsing their collapse. And when the time came, I wouldn't raise my voice. I'd raise the stakes. Because this wasn't just personal. It was professional. And no one survives a war they never saw coming. The cars lined up outside the resort entrance like a presidential convoy. Black, gleaming, tinted. Ethan offered his hand as I stepped in, his touch light, like we were still playing house. I kept my smile practiced. Silent. Steel under velvet. We arrived at the gala venue just as the sun dipped below the skyline. The ballroom sparkled, lit exactly the way I designed it. Champagne flowed. Staff stood at attention. And the 12 seats at the head table waited. Only 12. The guests trickled in. Glittering dresses. Shined shoes. Laughter loud enough to drown small cruelties. Isabel floated to the center like a queen surveying her court. She wore a deep emerald gown. A brooch I'd seen in town and country 20 years ago. And a smile so polished it could cut glass. She air-kissed me. Meadow, darling. You look pulled together. Thanks to your inspiration, I replied. She smirked, like she'd won something. Maybe she thought she had. The announcer called guests to take their seats. Ethan moved to the head table. So did Isabel. So did the rest of the family. I followed, until I stopped. Because my name wasn't there. No place card. No seat. Nothing. I stood, motionless. A perfect storm hidden in stillness. Ethan looked back, a flicker of pretend surprise. Is something wrong? I scanned the table. Paused. Let the silence do the work. Then said, calmly. Seems my seat didn't make it. Isabel raised her glass slightly. Oh no, how strange. I'm sure it's just a miscount. A quiet chuckle swept through the table. The kind that carries amusement and warning in equal measure. I looked at each of them. One by one. 12 faces. Comfortable. Polished. Prepared. They were expecting a reaction. A breakdown. A public scene they could spin into a footnote. She couldn't handle the pressure. Always so emotional. The poor girl never really fit. Instead, I smiled. The kind of smile that only comes when you know exactly what's about to happen. It's okay, I said, stepping back. I'm not part of the legacy anyway. Just the labor. And with that, I turned. Walked away. Calm. Straight-backed. Every eye on me. The PR team froze. The guests went quiet. Even the waitstaff paused mid-pour. No one knew what was happening. But they would. Very soon. Outside, I pulled out my phone, opened the app, hit send. Every cancellation. Every release of funds. Every contract reversal. Executed in under 60 seconds. I looked back at the glowing ballroom, music swelling, laughter building. A house built on stolen credit. And I had just pulled the foundation. The gala was still standing. For now. But the collapse? That was already in motion. By the time I returned to my suite, my inbox was full. Missed calls from Ethan. 3 texts from Isabel. 1 from the venue's accountant. But I didn't answer. I didn't explain. I just packed. I folded my navy gown into its garment bag. Unzipped my work tote. Checked once, twice, that the flash drive was still inside. Then I called the front desk and arranged for early checkout. First-class flight. Seat by the window. Booked and confirmed in under 10 minutes. No goodbye note. No dramatic farewell. Just silence. At 7:42 a.m., my driver pulled up. No one saw me leave. Except the concierge, who gave a small nod like he understood more than he let on. At the airport, I sipped black coffee and watched the morning news loop footage of the gala. No mention of a missing seat. No mention of a last-minute disaster. Yet. But I knew what was coming. Vendors would start calling. Invoices would bounce. The press would sniff out inconsistencies. And the Caldwells? They'd have to explain how their legacy celebration collapsed from the inside. By the time my plane touched down in San Francisco, my lawyer had already filed a notice of asset protection. I forwarded him every document. The seating chart. The Dropbox folder. The text messages from Ethan's phone. And a scanned copy of the PR statement they'd pre-written without me. I gave him instructions. Hold everything. Don't engage unless they try to come for me first. I didn't want revenge in the courts. I wanted freedom in my life. I arrived home to my apartment, small, sunlit, and fully mine. No more guest bedrooms in someone else's mansion. No more walking on eggshells in legacy homes that never had space for me. I took a long shower, made tea, sat on my balcony and watched the city breathe. I didn't feel victorious. I felt clean. What they tried to erase, I reclaimed. Not by shouting, not by begging, but by walking away with proof of who they were and who I'd refused to become. 2 weeks later, the headlines hit. Caldwell Legacy Gala canceled mid-event due to internal miscommunication. Vendors left unpaid after lavish celebration in Singapore. Anonymous source alleges family financial instability. They didn't name me. They didn't have to. People connected the dots. And those who'd been watching from the sidelines? They finally spoke. A former assistant came forward. A past vendor shared screenshots. An ex-client mentioned unusual contract shifts. The Caldwells scrambled. Isabel withdrew from 2 charity boards for personal reasons. Ethan made a public statement that said everything and nothing at once. I watched it all unfold from the quiet of my home office. Phone off. Tea steeping. Sunlight stretching across the hardwood. Ethan showed up once. Stood outside my building, looking up toward my window. He didn't call. Didn't text. Just waited. But I didn't go down. I didn't owe him a single word. He left after 20 minutes. I heard he moved back in with his parents. That the deal he was banking on fell through. That Madeline? She was spotted with someone else a week later, someone whose family actually liked her. My business, meanwhile, tripled. Not because I bragged, but because people remembered. They remembered who kept calm, who stayed professional, who walked away without burning the place down, but made sure it never looked the same again. 6 months later, I received a hand-delivered envelope. No return address. Inside was a card. No signature. Just 10 words written in the same script as Isabel's party notes. Perhaps you were the legacy. We just didn't see it. I didn't smile. I didn't cry. I just closed the card, slipped it into a drawer, and went back to work. Because some stories don't end with revenge. They end with relief. And a woman finally choosing herself, out loud, and without permission.